See, our life now has become so fast, we have no connect even with food. I mean, the simple thing of eating, even that you're not 100% focused on your food. I think yesterday Bhanumati was talking about meditation. A meditative attitude is with anything where you have 100% focus. But even eating is not there now. You don't even know, actually, you don't even relish the food you're eating. It's a job. You just have to eat, and so you eat. There's no relationship, there's no connectedness with food. So we thought that, somewhere if we bring this connectedness where you slow down a little bit. Of course, even now, if you sit they come to the temple, they sit there and they're messaging. But I guess, somewhere we have to break that. So when we bring art, and the other thing is, art creates a certain empathy and compassion in you. But the same thing, I remember once we had done a performance for Swami Chinmayananda, and he said it very nicely, because somebody asked him, "Oh, is rock music not music?" He said, "Personally, if you ask me, that is sound, and more so noise." He said the difference between the classical and traditional and the contemporary music is that one calms you down, the other excites you. So we need what is calming. So that's why we choose to do only traditional classical music. In fact, somebody was objecting, "Oh, this is a jazz, it's a fusion music." I said that's not for this forum. I said we don't want any instruments other than traditional classical music here. In the temple avenues, that's what it's going to be. So we've done it now for 7 years. So what we do is we start in January and go about 7 to 8 weekends. It depends. Some years it's 6 weekends, some years it's 8 weekends. Every weekend we try to choose temple venues that are over 300 years old, because that's the other problem, right? These are all in our country, unfortunately, all old temples are come under the endowment department, so it's government. So those are the temples that have no feeling of ownership. I mean, you're a devotee, you should feel this is my place. So these places don't have that feeling. The devotees who come to these temples, mostly, I can't generalize like that, don't feel a certain ownership to the place. So those places, there's not much activity other than just this. But the same thing, if you go to a private run temple, they do have other programs also. They have, like there's one temple in Bangalore called the Devagiri Devasthanam, of which in fact my father-in-law was a founding trustee of the temple. They have a lot of activity other than just the religious activity. So they run yoga classes, they have Vedanta classes. They in fact do a midday meal program for a physically challenged school. They have a clinic, a free clinic that they run every week. And they do a lot of other activities also. So we decided we should choose old temples, and these are all government run temples. But of course, in some areas, and we have tried to do it across Bangalore. So each weekend it's a different temple venue. And in some areas there are no government run temples, so we've just said it's okay, we'll do it in a private temple. And so it starts with the problem of getting permission. So we usually give a letter somewhere July, August to the department, and we may get the permission letter by January. And then we'll have to go many times, and they'll say, "Oh no, this caseworker is not there, she's on leave." And in fact, the last time I told them, I said, "Why don't you give me a job here? If you want me to move my paper from table to table to table, I might as well work here, because this is not happening." But either way, see, and the other thing that I object to is, I have no problem with any religion, but when it comes to my place of worship, I want my people to be there. I mean, they're not going to let me come and interfere in the Waqf board or in the church. They're going to tell me, "What are you making decisions for us?" Unless, I've changed my religion. But in the Hindu Endowment Board, there are people of any religion working there, because it's government. In fact, before even the executive officer, that's the person who actually goes into the temple and is counting the cash or doing whatever, used to be of any religion. And then I think there was an objection. They said, no, we don't want people. I mean, it's come to religion, so let's keep it that way. If it was secular, then it's a different thing. This is religious, so let's just keep it that way. And so I don't want the government interfering in my temples. I mean, let the government do its job, which is secular, and let them do whatever they have to do everywhere else. Why should they interfere in the temples? And they have these boards. Your offering should go only into the hundi, because whatever is in the hundi goes to the government coffer. And supposedly things have changed, but before that would just go to become a part of the treasury. See, as a devotee, if I put 1 rupee there, I'm putting it for the temple. I'm not putting it for, say, sewage development. I'm not doing that. I'm doing it for my temple. You want to develop the sewage there, you do that, but not to go into a general pool. But most people don't know these things. And so now if there is the endowment department maintenance, all the maintenance, the salaries of all those employees go from the hundi. And if the EO or the commissioner wants to buy a new Innova car, money is going from your hundi. In fact, one of the temple priests complained to me. He said, Madam, we wanted to whitewash the place, and when we went and asked the commissioner, he says, oh, ask the devotees. I said, sir, but money is going into the hundi. Why not you give that to us? Oh, no, that has to go towards all salaries and all that. You ask the devotees. I mean, that is like insane. And then, the main head priest's salary in some of the temples is like 3,000 or 4,000 rupees, while the sweeper is getting 14,000 rupees, and he is a government employee. So he gets all the benefits, but the priest does not. So many people complain, oh, if you go to Orissa, the pandas bother you. I said, what do you mean bother me? I said, listen, the only thing they know, this is their job. This is all they know. And they don't get paid for it. So a man has to live. So somehow they're going to want it. So they're going to try to push it on you and say, please do this, please do that. So you can't blame them. See, I talked to a lot of the priests. One of them said, ma'am, we open the temple at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. We go back at 10 o'clock in the night. We may get a few hours in the afternoon. That's the time when we probably have to go for the flowers, go for this, go for that, whatever else is there in the temple. He said, this is our life. How do we live with the salaries that they give? In a city like Bangalore, how will they live? Then they'll say, oh, whatever comes in the plate. Okay, whatever comes in the plate is probably a pittance. In a temple where there are a lot of people, maybe. And you know how our Indian mentality is. When we go to the temple, it's coins that you drop there. You don't drop big notes. So, what is it they'll get? Okay, in some temples they may get. But you can't generalize that rule, right? And then we'll complain, oh, they don't do their job. What is the incentive for them to do their job? Oh, they shouldn't be expecting money. Okay, what do you mean this? They have to live. So, I was so disappointed. I went to a temple called Madhyaranga, beautiful temple, huge old temple. I was just talking to the priest. I said, so your children are following in the parampara? He said, no. He said, they're not. He said, before there was at least the respect that we'd get. He said, even that we don't get now. We're treated like employees. That's what I said. This man said, no, my sons have gone. They're becoming engineers. They're becoming something else. So he said, he said, at least if there was some respect, then we'll say, okay, this is our parampara, you have to continue it. But he said, there's nothing we get from this. He said, for me, because I've been raised, brought up, everything in this, and this is all I know. He said, how can they prevent them from coming here and doing what they have to do? Because it has nothing to do with the job. That's their life, that's their very breath, to come in the morning, open the temple, do whatever they do. Because for them, it's actually a place of a divine manifestation. It's not a stone. There is a difference between a man and a woman. I mean, physically, there is a difference. And I remember somebody asking me, oh, why is it you don't go to the Rotary Club, no, not the Rotary Club, some Masonic lodge or something? I said, why should I? I said, I have no competition with them. I said, I'll have my own. So I have avenues that I express myself, they have avenues that they express themselves. It's working fine with them being there. Why should I have a competition with them? See, and as women, and if we are in the years of producing, you can't even lift those vessels in the altar. Why do I want? So, okay, so I have a female priest just because I want to argue I have a female priest. Now she can't lift the vessel, so you have to have an assistant there. Why? Why all that? It's going well, it's going fine. It's a tradition that's gone, so leave it. Why do we have to fight? Why is it that we have to feel that, oh, we are being denied something? There are so many things we do that they can't do. But because now, today, in this whole day and age, it's like, if you say, woman is related to mother, it's like an insult. I was so shocked when I saw this whole thing. What's it? Bandhan, something on Facebook. I mean, it's a place I rarely go to, which says that if you say that a woman's nature is beautiful and mother-like, it's like caging her. Oh, I have to be respected for what I am. The point is, what are you other than different roles? What is a person other than all these roles? But every person you respect for a particular reason. I respect you as a filmmaker, right? So that's a role. So mother is a role, sister is a role, daughter is a role. Why is it we're afraid of the roles? I am what I am because I'm made up of all these different roles. All these roles make me up, unless I am a total ascetic who has no role other than just being. We are not like that when we're in society. What does empowerment mean to me is when I feel fulfilled. And it depends on what gives me fulfillment. If I'm going to make my fulfillment dependent on 100 other things, then I'm not going to feel empowered. It's like saying that, oh, I mean, every woman empowerment project is about how to make them financially independent. Financial independence is not going to give you independence, because again, it's dependent on something other than you. If the female deity was worshipped, it's because that is power. And this whole thing of, oh, they did this to me, why are you allowing them to do this to you? This whole thing, where, in fact, I told somebody, I said, I don't like these woman things. It's like a separate thing for women, a separate thing for men. Why? Why do we have to make everything separate? Can women exist without men? No. Can men exist without women? No. That's why we have an Ardhanarishwara, who is a combination of both. Right there we have to understand, there's an equality. Why are we fighting for this? What is the fight? See, this is not at all an Indian thing. Whatever has happened over the centuries, yes, I understand. It's not that I'm negating things that have happened. There have been situations where men have been, it's like power corrupts. It can corrupt anybody. It's not only a special man thing that you become powerful and you want to rule. There are so many women who have been despotic. And in a situation, most of the time, it's women against women. It's rarely the man, even in a family situation. When you're having an argument, it's with your mother-in-law. Very rarely you have it with your father-in-law. And your poor husband is the one who suffers in between. Because women are very powerful. They just don't know how to be powerful. They only know how to be negatively vindictive, unfortunately. Because constantly you're seeing, you're less, you're less, you're less. You ask somebody who's doesn't work outside of the house, and they convert everything into a gender issue. Even this whole thing that happened in that Shani temple, that was absolutely ridiculous. You're supposed to be wanting to worship, right? You worship anywhere. God is everywhere. We have a temple culture because you need a focus, you need a focal point. Otherwise, if you're so spiritually elevated, you can sit anywhere, you don't need anything. But because our culture is understood that there are many parts and there are many different natures of the same person at different times, you may need a certain focal point. So you have temples, you have havans, you have meditation, you have so many things. If you have to approach that, how should your approach be? You go there, janda maroing, fighting, I want to pray, I want to worship, I want to do this, call the TV channels, then do a dharna. I mean, what is that? I don't even understand that. So do you become greater if you're the one actually, putting the flower there? I don't think so. I don't think it makes any difference. You have to have a meditative approach when you're approaching uh, a source of a manifestation of divinity. So that can't be a fight. That can't be a, I want equality. I was the last of 5 children, and I don't think any day that my parents made a differentiation between boys and girls, and we did everything together. I mean, in those days people didn't have a million staff in the house, and in fact, my mother didn't like having staff in the house till I think my sister had her first child. Till then, we 5 of us did all the work. And since there's a big age difference between me and my eldest brother, it was like we had 5 parents, me and my brother just above me. It was like we had 5 parents. So one person used to sweep the house, one person swapped the house, and we did the lightest thing of dusting the house. And so we never had that differentiation. So we were all educated. And in fact, uh, my sister also got a scholarship to do flying, but she's 13 years older than me, and times had changed by then. And in fact, my parents were fine with it, but the family doctor said, "You're mad." I mean, he would have said the same thing if one of my brothers had wanted to do it. He said, "No, no, 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 don't be sending them for all these kind of things." So she didn't go. But then the brother just elder to me was in the NCC Air Wing, and so he did flying, and he did glider, I mean, not powered flying. And then he told me, "Why don't you apply?" So after that, I got a scholarship. My brother encouraged me, and so I got a scholarship. Nobody said anything. By then, we didn't have to go to the family doctor. We could go anywhere for a checkup. And so I started flying. So I was on the state softball team. So I've had no problem. And in fact, when I was doing I got married quite early out of choice, not that anybody forced me into it. And so I got my scholarship to do commercial flying 2 days after I was married. And no, I made a choice. I said, I thought about myself. I said, am I the kind who will leave my family for 18 days in the month and go flying? Or will I be somebody who will want to stay home? And then I realized that I'm not the kind who'd want to go away for 18 days because I want to pursue something for my own self. So I made the choice. I said, I don't want the scholarship. I'm neither forced by someone else, nor am I forced by this foolishness to think that only if I achieve something outside of the house, I'm empowered. So I made a choice and I stayed home. And I'm mighty happy I did, because I have 2 beautiful children who've grown really well and are achievers in their own right. And it's not like if somebody asks me, "So what do you do?" "Oh, nothing." That's what most women who are at home say, because they actually don't know how to empower themselves. I mean, I see a lot of them, they have all the stuff in the house, they have everything, and there's a lot that they can do, but all they do is go to a kitty party probably. They think that is empowerment. That's not empowerment. You can do so much. And see, I made another decision. My husband earns, I don't care to earn. It's not his money and I don't have any money because it's his money. Whatever he earns is mine too. I mean, this is the other attitude. Oh, women have to be independent. That means financial independence. It's not independence in thought. It's not independence in action. But like I told you, the intervening 1,000 years in our country has been really traumatic for this country, because we've not recognized that. We have not recognized that. Because we were a country that was very peaceful. We were a country that had a lot of value for every member of society. Nobody was bigger, nobody was smaller. But in these 1,000 years, a lot of changes happened. See, I'll just tell you one thing. I was just reading a book on Jhansi Rani. And I was quite disappointed with the book. I mean, I don't want to go into the entire book. And then, so I started reading a lot of books on Jhansi Rani. And this one book I read, okay, it was from the angle of the female guards of Jhansi Rani. Okay. The one thing in that book that really struck me was they said that women were not even allowed outside the door, and they would have to go out in parda with 4 people around. I thought, I was like shocked. I said, what is this? Why? Even if she was a 13-year-old, 14-year-old girl child, didn't go out. I said, really, was our society like this? But then at the end of the book, I read where, it's a fiction, but it's also based on facts. Whatever are the facts were listed in the back. It seems at that time, whenever a British garrison entered a town, there was an order from the crown that they could set up what was called a war house. So they would send out one native, that is, very bad term, but one Indian, not in uniform, and 2 assistants who would go in uniform. They would scout around in the town and no matter who you are, what stage you are, whether you're married, whether you're unmarried, whether you're widowed, whatever you are, if they chose you, you had to go. Then you'll be taken to the garrison. Then depending on the rank, they will choose who and how many. And then you get a war card and then you live there. That's it. You have no say in this. And then you get a war card, and once you're useless, you're just tossed out. And so I said, I now understand why they did what they did. But the problem is sometimes power corrupts. So after a time, the reason for why you did it was lost, and you just continued to practice. So I think our children today should understand these reasons, why these things came about. But we have to be politically right. How can we say anything about all this? Even during the Islamic invasions, that's how it was. I mean, people talk about, oh, Tipu the Great, or Hyder Ali the Great, whoever, whatever. If they walked in the marketplace and they chose this woman, they had to go. There was no choice. So that's why they kept the women locked up. But that has to change. These were the reasons why women were kept inside. An understanding of that should come before you start making these statements, that this is Indian culture, this is Hindu culture, and it's Hindu culture to keep your women locked inside. That's not our culture. If you look at, that's what somebody said, oh, you see the way what women, Hindu widows are treated. I said, I'm sorry, that may be the present day. I said, but that is not Shastric. That is social change that has happened. And so don't blame our Shastras for that. You say that social changes have to happen? Yes, I agree. But in any situation, social changes occur everywhere. In fact, I was talking to one of the senior scholars, and I was asking him, I said, tell me, I don't like the way some of the rituals happen about widows. I said, I don't like it. I said, why is it's like that? He said, Amma, there's nothing like this in the Shastras. He said, these are all social practices that have come about, and those have to be changed. He said, if any Vedic Pandit tells you that is in the Shastras, you ask them to show you where it is, because it's not there. And see, we have what is called the Dharma Shastras, which were constantly updated according to social norms, because these were social norms. Like now they'll hold on to, oh, Manu said this. Okay, Manu said it, yes, that was at that period of time. There's a Parashara Shastra. There are so many. But in 1,000 years, nothing has been updated in our country, because we've been too busy fighting wars. Not the Vedas, not the Upanishads, but the Dharma Shastras, yes. Those are beyond time. Those are universal. They are not guided by time, place, nothing. Those are beyond. Those are universal truths. I mean, saying the truth, Satyam Vada, is anytime it's the same thing. But these are social norms, and they have to change. And they will change if we allow it. But we are not allowing it because we are constantly at loggerheads. Because there are those people who are actually don't have an understanding, who have sometimes go overboard, and those people who want to attack, who are constantly attacking even without sense. It's like when I hear some mothers say, "Oh, you don't be like me. You go out, you work, you do what you want to." Who made you like this? You could have stood up and said, "I want to do it." If you wanted to do it, if you felt that was the right thing to do. Honestly, people think that I'm being backward when I say that I don't like moms going out to work when children are young. Because I think children come into this world as your trust property. They're not your property, you're just a trustee. And you owe it to them those first years. You owe being there 24/7 for them. It's not about your personal journey. Then don't have kids. If you can't be there for them, don't have them. If you're not there for your child, see, I was just reading some psychiatrist report a couple of days back where she has these children who are 26, 27, no kind of life skill. It's because the parent is missing, and so what do? It's constantly material gratification for the children. Constantly. You feel guilty because it's there, it's there in you of wanting to be a mother. You're guilty, so buy something. So the child does not have a feeling of security. Because when a child comes, the parents are their gods. For a little child, the parent is like a god. So they think the parents are infallible. So when the first mistake happens, almost their world goes crashing down. Nobody looks at life from the child's point of view. Nobody looks at it. Why is it a child is so tormented if a mother is not there? People are not sensitive to the child. What is the first word the child says? It's amma, it's not appa. How can you equate the sexes? You can't. You can be equal, but you can't be same. That's the problem today. You want to be the same. It should not be. Why is it we're afraid of differences? We're a society that's so different. It's like when people say, "Oh, we were not at all a country till the British came." I said, "You please tell me, when all those travelers came, Fayan, whoever came, did they come to a particular kingdom or did they come to Bharata?" "Oh, they came to India." I said, "Then already you're being illogical." And the moment you say it's my sampradaya, nobody will question it. "Oh, that is my family tradition. This is how we do it." Everybody just keeps quiet then. It's like, Janmashtami. When I was young, I used to think, why is it we have 4 different days? I mean, Janmashtami in the north is celebrated on one day. In the south, different sects have it on different days. And ours would always be a month later. I'd say, what on earth is this? Why can't we just have one day? Then, one of the elders said, "You're always asking for freedom. When you're given the freedom, now you don't want the freedom. You want it to become slaughtered on one day." They said, each of us celebrate it on, somebody celebrates it on Rohini Nakshatram, somebody celebrates it on the 8th day of the month. So you have the freedom, and we celebrate it differently. Every family has its own tradition. That's the amount of freedom we were given. But freedom is meant for a very mature society. Unfortunately, now we are becoming a rather immature society because there's no depth. We speak of our culture reading an English translation. We never go to the root of it. I've seen so many articles that come out where, they would have just taken out of context and some English translation, and they'll just have a full commentary on that. When I go to Motilal, I'm not a big scholar or anything. If I have a question, I have a lot of scholars. I'll just call them and I'll say, "Listen, I have a doubt on this. Please tell me." I'm not an adept in Sanskrit per se, but I probably know enough to basically understand the superficial. If I ever go and I ask, and I always look at who the translator is. And if it's somebody not of our culture, I say, "I don't want it." I mean, nothing against them, but unless you understand this culture, you're not going to be able to translate a work. It's like somewhere I read, "Oh, what a silly poem. It was raining elephants." I said, that's what happens if you're stupid enough to do a direct translation. When they say I said, "How about raining like cats and dogs? Is that allowed?" That's all it is. So, our culture is, it's very simple to understand, yet it's very complex. But if you want to understand it, it's different. But if you want to challenge it, or you want to discredit it, it's very easy. You can just see something superficially and say, "I look at that, it's so stupid." But you have to understand it a little. It's like pregnancy. See, I come from a family where my grandmother, I mean, several generations, they were all very particular about the period of pregnancy and the first postpartum 3 months. And my mom was the most gentle person I can remember in all my life. She's yelled at me only once. She never raised her voice, and she had 5 children to raise. And when we used to keep losing our temper with our children, she'd say, the moment you keep on losing your temper, there's no value to it. And she'd say, you remember that one scolding all your life, right? I said, yeah. She said, respect comes from an inner strength that the person has, not from yelling. So when you start yelling, that means you're lost your, that's why they call it losing your temper, right? Because you've lost it. So my grandmother delivered 23 children, not herself. I mean, was the, what should I say, the person who supervised 23 deliveries of her grandchildren. And she was very particular. And so for 3 months, literally, we were not allowed out of the room. But that was one time my mother became very strict. She said, I don't say anything, otherwise you just listen to me now. And I'm sure glad I listened, because those first 3 months are the most important months for a child and a mother to bond. And that's the security that your child gets. And I remember one of my classmates in college, who was my senior, she came and she told me, she said, please listen to your mother. She said, I was very upset, I didn't listen to her. And she said, I've ended up with such backaches now. I said, okay, you're talking about the physical, I'm talking about the mental. She said, you need those 3 months of total silence. You have nobody interfering with you. And today, now, I was just quite amazed that I think it was a research paper from some foreign university that said that those first 3 days, you shouldn't bathe the child. I remember even I was upset when my mother said, oh, you shouldn't bathe. I said, Ma, please, that's so dirty. But now they say that all the antibodies that are there, yes, and for those 3 days, that's when they absorb it the most. So, we should pay a little attention, just look at what we have. The other thing that they say about our culture is, oh, it's just a lot of stories and legends. In the Bhagavatam, which is again a story per se, I mean, that's what you'd call it. The entire fetal development is detailed in that. But it's only a story, if you want to look at it that way. Yeah, it's a story of the Dashavatara, of Krishna, of everything. But it's completely detailed, to the extent that an embryologist has sat with a Sanskrit scholar and checked that that's exactly how it develops. So in fact, our next year Gudiya Sambrama's theme is going to be the Bhagavatam. So in fact, we're going to have one seminar also with it to write on this topic. See, I'm not saying we have to go back somewhere. We can't go back. We've already come forward. And poet Kalidasa very clearly says, all that is old is not necessarily good, and all that is new is not bad. I mean, it's time. And in our culture, more than everything we have understood. That's why we call the world Jagat, something that's always in a state of flux. It's just that we have to pay attention, have an open mind, and think. And that's what's missing in our society now, thinking. We make our own conclusion. Like I said, we read an English translation, we make our own conclusion. Because already our mindset is to dislike ourselves. We are brown outside, white inside. Our thought process is only white. We are now confused. We don't know who we are. No, if you wear a sari, you're backward. Yeah. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. You look around. You look around and see the confusion that people have. They don't want to have an identity because they don't know that this identity is not backward. You go somewhere and you speak in your own mother tongue and you see. They'll answer you in English. Why? Because it's It's already in the mind that if you are forward, if you're coming up, you should be very westernized in your clothing, your speech, your everything. I don't even know how to have endearing terms for my child in English. I mean, my grandchildren, I'll only talk to them in Tamil. But I go to, it depends on the area you're in. Like in Bangalore, there's an area called Kormangla. You go to the Kormangla Park, you only hear English, you don't hear any other language. Tirupati temple had a major problem a few years back when they were trying to, unfortunately, Christianize the whole place. There was Christian literature being distributed within the Q complex because there was a chief minister called Y.S.R. Reddy, who was Y. Samuel whatever Reddy. See, the media does not write about, it's not political to write about it, right? Had it been that a church or a mosque was being Hinduized, then it would have been like an issue for the whole world to talk about. But if it's the other way around, you will not hear about it. See, those 7 hills are actually the property of Balaji. It doesn't go to a trust. He is the owner of it.